Accucare Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine in Brick, New Jersey offers a state-of-the-art facility with all the best and current treatments. With athletic trainers, massage therapists, and doctors of physical therapy, Accucare has everything you need to stay healthy and perform at the highest level. Cupping, stretching, laser therapy, compression boots, and a full-body cryo chamber are just some of what you can expect at Accucare. Check out their website and social media links in my bio. No prescription is needed to see them. So call them today and start feeling and performing at your best. Again, thank you to Accucare for sponsoring the Shore Football Report.
All right, Coach. It's always good to start with the SEC of the Shore Conference, the American Division, the Division of Doom. Probably almost this entire division would be in our preseason top 10. We'll get to that a little bit later. Last year, Red Bank Catholic took home the title on their way to reaching a state sectional final. A huge change for this year. The juggernaut Toms River North team that went 14-0 last year has now entered the division. Manalapan has dropped out. So that just makes this even more of an absolute powerhouse division. And I think the interesting thing is not only is there like a great matchup every week in this division, but talk to me about some of the non-conference teams that a lot of these big name teams in the American division are going to play.
Yeah, I mean, Toms River North comes in, walking in here with a target on their back. I mean, they were 14-0, number one public school. Now they move into the SEC. So not only are they playing who they're playing in division, they got to play Millville week 0, who won the state championship for Group 4. They're playing them at the Battle of at the beach down in Ocean City. So that's a tough one. And I talked to Oz about it, and he just said that basically they challenged each other. And, he goes, I got the team. We might as well play it and see where it rolls.
Yeah, I mean, that's just great for the fans. 2 reigning group champions going head-to-head to start the season. I mean, you can't beat that. That's worth getting on the Parkway and driving all the way down there to Ocean City for. I think that's an amazing matchup. And the non-public teams are really challenging themselves this year too.
Donovan Catholic did a great job by adding St. Augustine. They're going to play week 0 home. And then week 5, they're playing St. Joe's Montvale away. So that's very interesting there. Red Bank Catholic, who do they open up with? Bergen Catholic.
That is another incredible matchup.
At RBC, they loaded it up, and they're also going to play Seton Hall Prep again for a second time away. So they definitely beefed up. An interesting matchup, though, too, is also Rumson in a non-division. I'm looking at it playing Point Borough. And
that's a big state. That could be a big state playoff implication and maybe potentially like a round 1 of 2 meetings between those teams.
Yeah, I mean, they did it. And then Middletown South and Wall, I thought it was interesting that they moved their game to week 0. And interesting, now I didn't talk to them yet, but I'm curious if Coach Nooch moved. He's got 2 bye weeks, and they're before Toms River North and Donovan Catholic. And then, I wonder if he strategically did that. Actually, Middletown South and Rumson moved their game. Or did Rumson move it to create a bye before Red Bank Catholic? It's interesting what they did, but they moved the game up to play week 0. I never understood why teams did stuff like that, but everybody's got a rhyme or reason to play week 0 to create bye weeks.
And I think the other thing is the razor's edge in this division, right? Wall, which started last season 0-6, trying to compete in this tough division, ended up 4-7.
Yes.
They played Manalapan for the game that essentially decided who was going to stay in the division and who was going to get bounced to another division. They win 14-7 by getting a stop on an interception in their own end zone in the final seconds of the game. That's the difference between playing in the American division and playing in another division. And, I know Wall, Ed Guerreri's always up for the challenge. He's coached some great teams at Manalapan. He got his feet wet with a really tough schedule last year. But now you look at it, and now they add Toms River North to that schedule. I mean, it is just ruthless. It's really hard to make progress when you're playing a top 10 team one after the other. But, I mean, as we saw with Rumson last year, you can lose in this division, play some close games, but it prepares you for the state playoffs. Rumson made a run all the way to the Group 2 championship game because they had already seen better teams than they were really going to see like almost their entire playoff run. So it did pay off in that. My worry for a lot of these public school programs is attrition. You get injuries trying to every week competing in these dog-eat-dog games. It can be tough to make it through the whole season with your roster intact.
Scott, I mean, my motto is it's not who you lost, it's but who you have. So if you're not doing your research and you look at your team, say, hey, I'm excited. We got a lot of guys back. Look at on offense, defense, our underclassmen are doing this and this. And then when you look at everybody else's in there, they're just as excited. So there's a lot of teams excited in the American division, and it's going to be a battle week in, week out. You got to win those non-division games. You got to win.
And again, October 21st, that's the one you want to circle right now. There's a ton of big games in this division, but RBC, Toms River North, all this past year, there was the debate, who's number one, who's number two. Toms River North was in another division. They couldn't settle it on the field. So if it comes to that, this time it will get decided on the field. And I think the other thing is the one thing that Toms River North, the one ding against them that they had to deal with last year was they felt like, well, their division wasn't really challenging. They were blowing everybody out week after week after week. Mm-hmm. What is it going to be like now that they have a dogfight every single week? So I think that'll be an interesting challenge for them this year because there's no cruise control game. There's no we're up by 50 at halftime game. So it's going to be a tougher challenge for them. And obviously they have the players to do it. They have some of the best players in New Jersey coming back all over that roster. So, but I'm interested to see how they handle that challenge. And the other game, Donovan Catholic, RBC, Donovan. And the other thing is they scrimmaged last year, Donovan Catholic, Toms River North, right down the road from each other. They compete for players. It can be a little bit of a chippy rivalry. Former members of Toms River North staff are part of Donovan Catholic staff. I mean, that's going to be a game you got to look forward to.
Bragging rights. Yeah, bragging rights. Listen, you could piece any one of those 6 teams and say, look at this team playing this team. Look at that team. Every week, there's something to excite reporters and fans every week in the American division. But you do need to win those non-division games, and you have to win at least 2 in order to make the playoffs because that hurt Eddie Guerreri not winning that second game. And they showed in that regional tournament that they could beat other teams.
Yeah, they would have been a threat if they had gotten into the postseason. And you're right. Yeah, it's like you just got to survive. Somebody has to finish near the bottom of the standings. But if you can just survive enough that you can get into the playoffs, you're probably not going to see better teams in your bracket than you saw in the regular season. But it's just crazy, though, how that even that first weekend of divisional games, September 9th, you have Toms River North against Rumson. That's the Group 5 champion against the Group 2 finalist. You have Donovan Catholic, RBC, the same weekend. It's like, how do you even decide which game to go to? There's just so many good ones.
I need to hire more people. That's what we got to do. So let me give a quick overview on everybody real quick on who they have coming back, what excites us about each program. Going from left to right, you got Toms River North with 8 starters back on both sides. They had a JV team, Scott, and this is important because if you were a young varsity team, you expect your JV team to be competitive, maybe a little under 500. Their JV team was 6-0. So their JV team was 6-0 with 16 starters back equals Oz is loaded next year. without a doubt. Now RBC has 16 starters back too.
And I mean, we got to mention Tom's River North has the reigning Gatorade State Player of the Year, Michael Ford.
Yeah.
After it's going to be hard to have an encore to the season he just had. So yeah, they're bringing back the best player in the Shore Conference on top.
Yes, and after we show this clip, where you'll hear more about the players that they got back. I'm going to just give an overview. But RBC had a JV freshman team that was very competitive to add to their 16 starters, so they're excited. And then Donovan's got 11 guys that have started on offense and 8 on defense. That's pretty incredible. With all
I mean, they were so young last year. I mean, look at it, like the key pieces on their offense were freshmen, sophomores. So this is a team that they were right outside that top group this year. You would think they now have the experience and the talent to puncture into that discussion for number one.
And don't feel bad for Antonucci. I mean, yes, he's in a clutter of great.
Yeah, they're going to be really good too.
They got star power. They got 7 guys back on both sides, and their JV team was 7-2. So they're going to be reloading very quickly. And how about Rumson? The small little Group 2 school. Does anybody feel sorry for him? They had 13 guys back, 7-6. Their JV team, 5-1-1. Their freshman team, 7-0-1.
They returned one of the best quarterbacks in the Shore Conference, so they're set at the most key position on the field.
Yeah, Owen O'Toole's great. And then you got Wall. You put Wall in any other division, they probably would be a dark horse or a favorite in any division. 8 starters and 7 on offense, defense back, and they have a freshman team 6-2-1. He's building the program back to where it was in the past, and I think Wall is going to be a team that's going to make the playoffs. They're going to get their wins, and they're going to be dominant there.
Yeah, and like you said, when you're analyzing the schedule of these teams, you also want to look at those non-division games. And, they're going to be playing Colts next, playing a few of these teams. That they're going to be tough with Chris Scully back. And it just feels like there's no rest in this division. Like there's just, if you have an injury or, you're struggling a bit, you don't get that gimme game that just gets you back on track. It just doesn't exist.
No. And when you play a team like this, your Tuesday practice may not be fully loaded with practice guys because they're icing their shoulder, they're nursing an injury. So you don't know who you might have to the next week. We call it limping to that next week.
And I think the other thing is when you talk some of the most highly recruited players in the Shore Conference, like players that have tons of FBS offers, the flagship guys, they're almost all in this division.
Mm-hmm.
Almost every single guy you could think of off the top of your head, the Emmanuel Rosses, Frankie Williams, Michael Ford, Pruitt, all the Donovan recruits, they're just, Middletown South has some star power. So that's the other thing. The best individual players in the Shore are pretty concentrated in this division as well. Okay, so last year RBC wins it. We're not going to start doing permutations yet. We got to wait to see what these teams are like in August on the field in the preseason. But do you think the balance of power will get upended? Do you think things will change? Obviously, with Tom's River North in the mix, they're certainly a threat to take the crown from RBC. But do you think anyone will disrupt the top 4 of, Tom's River North, RBC, Donovan Catholic, and Middletown South?
Scott, I don't know who. If you said give me your top 4 in those 6 teams, I think you're going to get 5 different people saying different things because Where do you put? I know North and RBC are the 2 juggernaut teams. Donovan Catholic is going to be as good as them, good as them, and don't be surprised if they win the division.
So it could be a question of all right, you got those 3 at the top, but don't forget Middletown South beat them last year. You can't overlook that fact either. And they got most of their team back. So you can't say, oh, okay, just because these guys are a year older,
if
they're going to leapfrog them.
If Jake Zawackel's watching this later on, he's going to
and the Rumson guys are probably saying, how are we not considered a top 14? We're in the Group 2 finals last year. So, but the point is somebody has to be in the top 4. Somebody's finishing in 5th place, unless obviously there could be ties. There could be a couple teams tied for 3rd or whatever, however it shakes out. But it's just crazy that, somebody is going to have a rough record in this division because that's just math. Like it's just going to happen.
We have a couple months to figure out this order because we're not doing it today at all. I am not getting phone calls and all this. I'm picking our order of a way too early American division at all. That's not what this purpose is at all. But there's some good football teams. A lot of guys are excited about their programs, and but they got to win their non-division. That is the storyline.
And that's what, and we talked about earlier. That's the crazy part. Some of their non-division games are the best teams in the state.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's like, oh yeah, we just got to beat Bergen Catholic and we'll be fine, or we just got to win our non-division game against Millville. Like these are not easy tasks. Like that's adding a lot to an already full plate. I'm interested. Wall plays Middletown South September 9th, that first weekend of divisional games, and it's like that's going to be their chance to make some kind of statement of everyone's going to pick us last. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
They're going to be picked last by everyone, just given what those other teams are. So that's their chance to be like, maybe we're not as far back in the pack as you think.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a game to look at. But you're right. We could go on and name every single weekend of September and October, and you could name 2 or 3 matchups where you'd say, man, that's a great one. That's going to have huge implications. That's going to be 2 top 5 teams in the shore. I guess let's end with, what do you feel about this whole thing of having the best teams, at least on paper, concentrated in one division in the Shore Conference?
I think all 6 of these teams should be spread out in the Shore Conference because all 6 of these teams could win a division if they were in other divisions, like in the past.
Yeah, but don't you want to see them challenged and face each other to some degree? Like you wouldn't want them all in a different division steamrolling everybody.
Non-division. Let them play each other non-division somehow.
Right. Yeah, if you could work that out, I think maybe that could work. But
because
I just know we saw what happened with that last year when Toms River North was in another division, and we basically kind of, I don't say ignored them, but none of their games were even competitive until we got to the state playoffs. So it was like they were just kind of rolling through the schedule, even though they're one of our top ranked teams. But there's no intrigue in any of their games because they were all massacres. Whereas now you're going to see them get tested a lot, and again, you're seeing the best players go against each other. Like, how exciting is that when this guy's got 5 offers as a corner, this guy's got 10 offers as a receiver. They're going to go head to head this whole game. Mm-hmm. This quarterback is an FBS kid. So is this guy. They're going to go head to head. So that's the excitement to me, is like just the sheer star power of like, all right, who's the best of the best? Who's going to bring it the most on the big stage?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's intriguing for fans and all that, but as a coach, you kind of like little breathers in your schedule.
Yeah, that's my thing. I mean, rarely do I remember in the history that I've followed the Shore Conference where teams had these just relentless schedules where there isn't like we're 3 touchdowns better than this team. We can get some guys healthy. We can win this game, take a deep breath before we go back into the gauntlet. It's like, no, man, if you have a bad injury, you're just going to lose 3 games in a row. Like that used to be the other thing. Say your starting running back had a high ankle sprain. In the past, it could be, well, maybe he'll miss 3 games, and we'll muddle through. We'll go 2-1. We'll go 3-0, depending on the competition. Now it's like, if that happens, like your season might be in the tank.
Yeah. Well, let's end it right here. When we shut off, you're going to have a summary, guys, of the American division, of who they got coming back, a little info about each program, and again, the star power, what guys made all-star teams. Hope you enjoy it. This is Scott Stump and Rob Davis from the Shore Football Report saying, I can't wait for the season to start.